The lines are open if you've got a call, and the line is 866-980-0499 if you're calling anywhere in North America from outside the Lower Mainland. If you're calling from in the Lower Mainland, we'd like you to phone 604-980-0321. And Jeff, you've got a question? What is it for? What is it about?
Well, it's about, I'm a Canadian with a green card that lives in the U.S.
Yes.
And I have RSPs in Canada, and I have a 401k in the U.S. And I'm just trying to figure out, is there any advantage or disadvantage for me keeping RSPs in Canada? Should I be moving them over to a 401k, or what should I be doing?
Well, number one, you can't take your RSP and move it to a 401k, and you can't take your RSP and move it to an IRA. And I'm going to ask Fred about that. If keeping his money in his RSP for the last 7 years has certainly been an advantage, has it not?
Yep, I would say so.
The Canadian funds have done far better than American
superior,
funds.
Because of the currency differentiation and the market differentiation, all has favored Canada.
Yep. So you did very well for the last 3, 4, or 5 years. Whether that's going to happen in the future is anybody's guess. We can't guarantee that. But if you're living in the States and you have the Canadian RRSP, do you by any chance have your U.S. tax return in front of you?
I don't have it right in front of me.
Is it something you could get in a couple of minutes and come back?
Yeah, I could.
Why don't you go get it? Because I got a couple of questions to ask you about that return.
All right.
And I'm just going to talk to Fred. We'll leave your line open and we'll get a little bit of feedback here.
I'll just put you on hold and go.
You do that and come on back. Because the one thing that I got to honor you on is that you're one of the few financial guys around town as well that pays any attention to U.S. citizens in Canada.
Well, because it's an important consideration, hugely important consideration.
He's not here to hear this, so we're going to ask, but what sort of penalties can he have if he's not reporting his Canadian RRSP in the States?
Well, I think that you told me one time, it came from you originally, but if you're a U.S. citizen resident in Canada and you have money inside an RRSP, you're required to report that RRSP on your tax return. Not to pay tax on it, but just disclose it.
That's right.
It's an issue of disclosure, and failure to disclose it could be a $20,000 fine, minimum.
Yeah. Well, you got the concept right. If he doesn't report his RRSP, the minimum fine for the RRSP. Now, I'm going to say this. This is the fine, but I have never seen one invoked. Okay, so let's get that straight. The minimum fine is 35% of the amount of money in the RRSP plus 5% for every year you don't report it. But because it's a financial account, you got the other thing where you have to report all your financial accounts. And for that one, it is $10,000 minimum. And I've got 1,000
So it's
people.
not 20, it's 10.
Yeah, 10. I've got 500,000 maximum.
I forgot.
500,000 plus up to 5 years in jail. And I likely have met, well, I've met one person with a $100,000 fine, a 105-year-old lady with a $10,000 fine, if you can imagine, a 68-year-old woman with a $60,000 fine.
They need the money, David, for crying out loud.
It's parking meter
dough.
kind of stuff. So we want to make sure that anybody has this kind of documents, and the same thing applies to a Canadian that leaves the country and moves to the States, still has an RRSP back in Canada. He's stuck with this. Now, is our caller back? Is Jeff back yet? Do we know?
Back yet.
He's
the other problem our caller has is if he maintains that 401k in the United States and he's living in Canada, he cannot get advice from a broker here in Canada regarding the 401k.
Yeah. Well, the 401k, but he's living in the States is what his problem is. I think he's down there on a green card. Okay. And when he's down there on a green card, he's got the problem that he's got to report everything. So you actually make, are you a U.S. citizen, one of the questions on your return.
Well, it's right on the data form.
Right on the data form.
You got to fill the block in. What is your citizenship?
Yep. And if they happen to be a U.S. citizen, then you've got to pay more attention to them. Hello, Jeff. Are you back?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I want to know, did you report any money on line 8 or line 9?
Line 8 or line 9?
Yeah, you reported your Canadian.
Yes, I did.
You did. Okay. So that means that you should have done a Schedule B.
Yes.
Okay. And can you look at the Schedule B for me?
That would be on the
it should be the 4th page if you put it together, or the general way that anybody puts it together. It'll be the 1040 and then Schedule A and then Schedule B, or If you don't do itemized deductions, it would just be the 1040 and then Schedule B. You find Schedule B?
I'm looking double-sided here. So.
It should be page 4. This is really important. This is important stuff.
Schedule A and B, Form 1040?
Yep, you found it?
Yep.
Okay. Bottom of Schedule B, there's 2 questions, number 7 and 8. Can you see those?
Yes, I can.
And what did you say for question 7?
Yes.
And what did you say for question 8?
No.
No. Well, your RRSP is a foreign trust. Okay? So you should have said yes to question 8, and then you have to fill in a form called an 8891. And I'm not sure if you were there, and you have to fill in a TDF-90 for any other foreign accounts you have, and you have to fill in a TDF-90 for the RRSP, the question that they asked for in question 7. Now, question 8 refers to a form called a 3520, and if you were in Australia, New Zealand, Great Britain, France, Spain, whatever, you would have to fill in a form called a 3520 if you had the equivalent of an RRSP. Because you're in Canada, and the 3520 is like anywhere from 8 to 14 pages. It's a pain in the neck. Because you're in Canada, you only have to fill in a one-page 8891, but failure to fill it in and send it in, as I was explaining to Fred while you were gone, is a minimum penalty of 35% of the money in the RRSP plus 5.
I've been claiming, I'm not familiar, but there is a form that I fill in every year to tell them what my accounts, what accounts I have in Canada and what they're worth, including my RSP.
Okay, but you've been doing that and sending that to Detroit, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, there's another form that I know, I just know you've missed it.
Okay.
And it's called an 8891, and the 8891 is what's asked for in question 8. And question 8 asks for a 3520 because your RSP is a foreign trust. And the 8891 takes the place of Form 3520, and it goes with the tax return. Now, do you by any chance live in California?
No, I'm not far from you. I'm looking at you from Point Roberts.
Oh, are you? Well, I can see Point Roberts from my living room.
And I'm right on Boundary Bay, looking across the bay, right down the line.
Okay. Well, if you know where the lights are on top of Grouse Mountain, as they come down from the chairlift, if you follow the line of the lights right down.
Right underneath that big wind turbine up there.
Yeah, I'm in the top row of houses just underneath the line of lights. Anyway, you have to fill in the 8891 and get that in. File a 1040X and get your 8891 because there is a real penalty of 35% plus 5% for every year you didn't fill in the Form 8891.
Right.
And you're supposed to...
Is that the one you talked about previously that they've given us a little leeway to get that in now, or they're asking?
No, the TDF-90 is the one that they've given the leeway. And they gave a leeway till October the 15th, absolutely officially. And I had another client phone this morning who was down at the IRS office in Bellingham yesterday, and they told him that they've extended it now to 2010. But I went and looked on the website, and I couldn't find anything saying that. The last extension I have is that you have to have it in by October 15th, 2009. And those are the TDF-90s that they asked for in question 7.
All right, and you obviously do taxes.
We do U.S.
I
Canadian.
probably have a U.S. tax expert doing this, but obviously he's missed something here.
Well, if you don't know the 8891 and the question number 8 is marked no,